Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, or Life Coach Maureen, your host. So happy to have you all here. At the time of recording, it's a brand new year, and I'm so excited. My very first guest of the year is absolutely fabulous. I'm so excited for everyone to know about her, to learn about her. She's got a beautiful, beautiful message. And I think this is the essence of the podcast is learning to get happiness from pain and grow through those experiences that we have that we don't want to experience, but sometimes it's just what we need to learn in life. And this is an amazing story. So my guest is Marie Alessi, and Marie unexpectedly lost her husband and father to their two boys in June of 2018. He had a brain aneurysm. Using her own tools and strong intuition, she created her way back to happiness. Do you hear that, listeners? She created her way back to happiness. I love that so much. In a way that now ripples massive impact to many souls around the world. Marie wrote a book about her experience of moving to Australia, meeting, marrying, and losing Rob, and how she coped and found empowerment through her journey. She has since founded a movement with the same title as her book, Loving Life After Loss. With empathy and understanding, she gently picks up her clients from where they are at with a whole lot of respect for their unique journey. There is no one size fits all approach when it comes to loss. Yet there is a stigma around grief that she peels back layer for layer to not get entangled in others' expectations and to honor your own needs and space. Welcome, my beautiful friend, Marie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited because this is also my first podcast of the year. So thank you. I was so looking forward to it.
I love it. Now, listeners, I already told her I was bowing down because she has done a TED Talk. And in your TED Talk, Miss Marie, there were two pieces that I'm just going to usually I'll say, let's start with your story, and we'll definitely going to get there. But there were two pieces that I loved so much out of your TED Talk. And it was the comparison and competition of grief. And that hit me so much.
Yeah.
Like, we always try to say, my grief is bigger, or you shouldn't be as upset as I am because this happened to me. So I love that. We're
Yeah.
going to get into that. And
Mm,
this, I think, is the best way to start the podcast, where you say, the amount of love must be equal to the amount of grief we portray. And that's the stigma or the expectation. And
yeah.
I'm so excited to get into it. So let's start with your, as I call, knee story. So the moment in your life that just brings you to your knees and we
Mm,
feel the most helpless and hopeless. So tell us your story with Rob.
mm. Oh wow, that was such a big question for me because where we feel the most helpless and hopeless, I can't even say that, but I will explain it when I share my story because it will make so much more sense. So the knee story where I was brought to my knees was literally, I was actually literally on our bedroom floor when I received that phone call. Was after an entire day trying to reach Rob, and he was on a business trip away from us, like 5 hours flight away from us on the other side of Australia, and promised to ring me first thing in the morning to wake me up because I was updating my phone. We had a chat the night before, and our chat that we had was about love and connection, believe it or not. So it was really beautiful. And that phone call in the morning didn't come. And I tried to text him and to ring him all day until about lunchtime. I realized, hey, I've got his number from the hotel where he's staying, and I better give them a call and see if they can check if something happened. Maybe they can send someone to his room. And so I did. And as I called them, I had this split second of a vision of Rob collapsing in the shower. And I remember shaking my head thinking, don't go there, Marie. Don't go there. Don't drive yourself crazy. You know, my anxiety levels were already rising anyway because I couldn't get hold of him. But that's where they found him. He had collapsed in the shower and passed from a brain aneurysm. And I actually said to them, can you send somebody to his room and check in a shower? I thought they must think I'm nuts when I say that, but that's where they found him. So that's how the story started. And around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, 4 hours later, after my phone call, I finally received a phone call from the sergeant from the coroner's office, telling me that the exact sentence was, I'll never forget that. I'm sorry to inform you that your husband deceased in a hotel room in Perth this morning.
Oh my gosh.
And that was it. I just sank to the floor and I sat there and the world was spinning around me and everything was so deafening silent. I just remember that. It was just, and everything goes through your head. It's like, this can't be real. I expected that maybe an accident happened and he's in hospital, but not that. It was just very unexpected. I just didn't see that coming.
Yeah. I mean, just
Mm.
devastation and just unexpected. And I had another gentleman guest who had a brain aneurysm at on an airplane, and he
Mm.
made it out. Luckily, there were
Wow.
there was help there, and he had
Mm.
said to all of those who had not made it through a brain aneurysm, what he does today is in honor of all of them. And we
Mm.
just never know those circumstances, and brain aneurysms, with my medical background, it's just, we don't know. All of us have a weakening.
Yeah.
We just don't know when
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
burst or break. So it's
Yeah, and it's also like what I learned through what happened in our lives was that roughly a third of the brain aneurysms end fatal, another third end in a way that people literally end up, for the lack of better words, like a vegetable, like seriously, completely just existing but not living. That sounds terrible, but I'm just using my husband's words because he always said, I'd never want to end up like that. I do remember him saying that. And a third recovers. It's incredible, it so depends on, it's not just if there was help there or not, it also depends on, where it bursts and if that's, yeah, anyway, we don't want to go too technical here or too medical, but
no,
in
true,
my
but
husband's
I
case,
think
it was
that's,
instant.
yeah.
There was
and
no help would have
And I love that you say
been on
that.
time.
It's there's not always not always, there's more than likely not a preventative
Yeah,
measure, and it doesn't discriminate for
yeah,
age, which is interesting.
mm,
So
yeah,
your life just, I can imagine it's like life as you knew it just stopped in that moment,
yeah.
and you had two young kids, and I imagine
Mm.
going through your head, what were you thinking of? Oh my gosh, how would he go? How do we go on? How do I tell the boys?
How do you tell your boys? I literally had 3 seconds to prepare for that. And that was the time it took me to walk downstairs. I knew I had to tell them first. I knew that's just a sort of honoring the position they have in my family. It sounds weird. I didn't think that through clearly in that moment. It was more on gut instinct that I knew I had to tell them. So when I walked downstairs, they were sitting on the couch and they were dressed in their martial arts uniform because they were ready for me to drive them to training. And I said, I just need to make one more phone call. I kept saying that all day. I need to make one more phone call, one more phone call. They had no idea that all day I was panicking already about why I couldn't hear from him. I could feel something was going on. We were so connected. But there is no sugarcoating a message like that. I had to say it straight out. And I had to tell them that their dad just passed away. It was shocking. It was really gut wrenching and heartbreaking and, crying and screaming. And yeah, I just held them. I cried with them. I just needed to hold space for them in that moment. That's all I knew. And then something kicked in that prevented me from falling, that prevented me from, going deep into that loss and losing myself in it. It was a conversation that Rob and I had many moons ago. And I remember him coming home late from work one day and he rang me and said, babe, there was an accident on Heathcote Road. Everybody who knows this area here knows that Heathcote Road is a one way. Like if there is an accident, you have to do like a 2-hour detour to drive around. And it was blocked because of a fatal accident. And that accident caused our conversation. It was so tragic because it was a young father and his little one was only a toddler, even younger than our kids. And again, this is not about comparison. This is just to tell his story as well. And And it prompted us to have this conversation. What would you do if, the what if conversation, we had this chat. And we had a couple of them over the years, maybe 3 or 4, but they always ended in, if something was to happen to you, I would want you to create the happiest life possible for the boys and you. And we would say that to each other. And now I always tell that story with, love is simple. Love just wants you to be happy. Love doesn't want you to suffer or be stuck in grief or be stuck in sadness. And I, more than anyone, know how that it sounds so much easier than done. When you do receive these news, they are really shattering, don't get me wrong. But in that moment where I held the boys and they were crying and screaming, that kicked in. That kicked in. I want you to take the boys and create the happiest life possible. It just kicked in. And it became my North Star. Like happiness became my North Star, my lighthouse in the darkest hour that we had. I had no idea how to get there, but I knew that's where I needed to go. So from there on in, every decision was just, what's the next step? What's the next step? And is that going to make us happy or not? That's how simple life became. And it was not easy, absolutely not easy, but that's how simple life became. Just the next step, just the next step, just the next breath sometimes, And I also remember that night I drove to Rob's mum and dad because I did not want them to receive that phone call. I wanted to tell them in person. And the entire family came together at Rob's parents' place. And that night, his brother kindly gave up his room so not Rob, sorry, myself and the boys could sleep in a room together. And I remember holding them both in my arms, and I had this feeling in my stomach as if somebody had poured acid right into it. That's how intense the grief was. And I had to breathe through that pain and through the tears. And I was sobbing. I was just laying there sobbing when they were sleeping. I just waited till they slept and I just held them and I sobbed. And the next day I flew to Perth to identify his body. So there was this whole feeling it, yet also not allowing myself to fall too deep into it because I don't know how I would have gotten out of this. I knew I had to stay on the surface because if I drown, I can't save my boys. So that was the sort of more like a gut instinct reaction that I can now give words to. I didn't have those words or conscious thoughts at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like you had a strength you didn't know you had at that
Oh,
moment. Like
yes.
there was this line, this boundary where it's like you can't go below this
Mm.
line. And what I really
Yeah.
love about your story so much, Marie, is that you allowed feeling. A lot of us just
Mm.
when death happens with our loved ones, sometimes we just go through the motions. Okay, let's get the funeral. Let's make sure we tell
Mm.
it. And we're not
Yeah.
feeling it. And what I hear in your story is you allowed your boys to feel it right away. You didn't protect them and
Mm.
tell them later or make up a
Mm.
story.
No.
You went right there. And I love that. I'm
Mm.
all about the honesty with children. They can handle it a lot more than we think they can. They are
Yeah.
so much more resilient than we give them credit for. You
They're
went,
often more resilient
yeah,
resilient than we are, as adults.
yeah.
It's incredible.
So I
Mm.
just I'm inspired by that you went through and you felt
Thank
it and
you.
then you go to the family and everybody. You got to feel to heal. And I know it sounds
Mm.
it's painful to do that, but it's so much better than
Mm.
pushing it off till later. And I know since your area of expertise is grief, you know so
Mm.
many people that do that. So how how do we help people at the very beginning stages where you were to not go past that line where it's too deep and we can't get out
Mm.
of it? Then we're in despair and then we're, suicidal or we're just,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
just in despair. How do you help people?
Mm. There are a couple of things that it's almost like a first aid kit for grief, I would say. And I also want to just state my expertise is healing grief, not grief per se, but I
Yeah.
really make that little but very distinct difference because I'm not so sure if I really am an expert in grief, but I really feel that I have become an expert in healing it and helping people out of it. And one thing that is super, super important, and if you don't already have it, you really need to create this. It is a support network, and it has to be a support network of people who really are capable of holding space for you. Unfortunately, the amount of people that rally around you when you are in deepest grief, that think they're helping but are actually not, is quite a large number. And I very often send around a document of like the 10 most common phrases in grief that we tend to say to people that are not helping us at all, and what you say instead. So you can find it on my website, by the way. It's a really beautiful document to have. It's very, very helpful for people. And the language that we use makes a huge difference, because every phase of healing is, for me, always a shift in perspective. How do we look at things? And for me, there was this whole let me just quickly go back to the support network. Instantly if you feel supported by a person or not, if after he or she leaves, you feel deflated or better. That's that simple. Just listen into that. Because sometimes we think, oh, the person really means well, oh, that person is really helping us. Yet as soon as that person leaves, we feel so deflated and we can't put our finger to it. We don't know why. It's often little things. It's often the wordings that they use. And very often people tend to shower you with their stories of grief, thinking they make you feel better, thinking they give you that feeling, or I just want her to know I understand her. But it's like when somebody is pregnant, a lot of people can refer to that. They get showered with the most horrible birth stories. And how is that helping me in preparation for the birth? It's just going to cause more and more fear and tension and pain. I went through that, in my first birth story, where a friend of mine meant well and caused so much fear in me that anyway, that is a perfect comparison that a lot of people can connect to more than grief if they haven't experienced it. Do not shower people with negative birth stories when they're pregnant. Do not shower people with your own grief stories when they are stuck in grief. They need space. And that space is really hard for people to hold, which means just sit with them. You don't need to have any solutions. You don't need to have any words. You can just be there. And even if you just say that, I can't even imagine what you must be going through right now. I'm here for you. You can talk to me a million times over. And some people get into this, into this phase where it's been 6 or 12 months and they're like, I feel like I'm bombarding people with the same story over and over again. And I keep saying, it's like, it doesn't matter. Tell me again. It's okay. Because I know people need to talk. People need to let it out. People need to cry. Sit with them when they're crying. Cry with them, whatever happens. Don't feel like you have to be strong. I remember one person in particular. I've mentioned her many times in various podcasts because it was so significant for me what she did. We were coming home from Perth. So at that stage, it was about 5 days after Rob had passed. And we actually came back on the plane that he was supposed to come back home to us. And that in itself was really gut-wrenching. And she rang me. I was driving over the driveway when I received that phone call on our way home from the airport. I was just coming into our driveway, and this sound, that a lot of people can relate to. That sound of driving into your driveway is that feeling of coming home. And that hit me the strongest, coming home knowing that he wouldn't be there. And my phone rang and it was Jo. And she said, do you want me to just come and sit with you? And I burst into tears. I'm still emotional now just telling it. I burst into tears because I knew that was exactly what I needed. Somebody who just sat with me, and she was there for hours. She brought her son so he would, be there for my kids, which was beautiful because he's the same age like my older son. And then when they left, she told me, it's like, oh, that poor guy at work. I was supposed to train him that morning, and I've been there for like half an hour. And then I received the news about Rob, and I left. I just left him there on his first day on the job. I just left him there. And I said, oh my God, and did you explain to him? And she said, oh, I haven't been back at work yet. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I have not been able to go back to work. And she cried, and then I cried, and I was like, I couldn't believe how beautiful that she told me that, how much it affected her. And that meant so much to me. And I'm sharing this story because so many people think that you have to hold back your own pain. Don't. It's actually the most beautiful and sacred thing to share that, to see how much my husband meant to other people as well, you know. Not that I didn't know that, but to see it and to feel it in that moment is very sacred. It's the most beautiful gift.
I love that. And I've heard people who have lost loved ones. One of the things that people say a lot is, I'm so sorry. And I've heard from
Mm,
many people, they say, don't be
mm,
sorry. What are you sorry about? You know, what they want to
mm,
hear is, my heart is breaking for you. I
mm,
can't imagine what you're going through. I'm here if you need
mm.
anything. And
Yeah.
a lot of times people do not reach out when they're grieving. And a lot of
Mm,
times you, like your friend, just show up, just
yeah.
say, I'm coming over and I'm bringing you dinner, or I'm coming over
Yeah.
and we're going to have
Yeah.
a glass of wine and you can talk or you cannot talk.
Mm,
It's just,
yeah.
sometimes we have
But
to
being
like,
there.
yeah, without
Yeah.
being too pushy. I mean, still be
Mm,
respectful. Like, do you need alone time? And if you don't,
yeah.
I would like to come over and do this, because I think,
Yeah.
is this correct to, I just think losing a spouse to me is just, I can't even, I can't put myself in your shoes and I can't imagine, but the feeling, that void, I just lost my pet, my dog,
Mm,
and he's like a child to me, and I lost him a few days ago. um
mm,
and I know
mm.
it's, he's not
Can I
just,
hug you?
I thank you. He's not just a dog. He is what
Mm,
started me on my spiritual journey, and he's in my books, and that's what all my life
mm.
coaching and my speaking is about. And he taught
Oh, that's
me,
beautiful.
he just taught me how to unconditionally love myself. That's why the
Mm.
podcast is, I never knew, but my dog did. But
Oh,
I
so
think,
beautiful.
thank you. I think the thing is losing someone and that void. I think that's, and it comes in
Mm,
waves.
yeah.
It's that you think you're okay, but are we ever okay? Or is it just, it's okay
Mm,
to be more sad some days and less sad
mm,
other days?
mm.
Is that,
You know, I I remember feeling that void so badly at first, you know, because Rob was so hands-on as a dad, as a husband, in the household, in everything. He did all the cooking. He was such a passionate, I always called him my own personal master chef, you know, because his dad being Italian, his mom Mauritian, he grew up with food. He was so passionate about cooking that he took over. He took over the kitchen. I became the kitchen hand at best, if even, you know, like he was just, so I felt that a lot. His whole presence in our family, you know, was so large and so intense in the most beautiful way that we all felt that void that you're talking about. You know, um, I have also learned in this journey. This journey has been so sacred and deeply spiritual for me. Going through that. I had an epiphany fairly early in our journey that this was all part of our soul contract. This is my belief. Rob and I had a soul contract, and this was all part of it. And this was probably all part of it for what I have then created. And I felt so guided by him on this entire journey. And I had many, many signs that really proved that for me. Not that I need any proof for the outside world, but for me, it was so beautiful to receive all these signs that he was really guiding me on the journey. He was with me on that entire journey. Uh, and at first, I used words like, you know, people use these things like, there'll always be a hole in my heart. And I have changed that wording for me. I said, there'll always be a place in my heart for Rob. I don't
oh,
like that idea of a hole in my heart because then all the memories and everything would just fall through. So for me, that having a place in my heart for Rob is just so much more beautiful. And I would also not say anymore, I used to at the beginning, but I would also not say anymore to people, my heart is breaking for you, because who am I to judge whether their heart is breaking or not? I say things like, my heart goes out to you, because
mm,
that can be extended with so much love, you know, and I'm always sending love to people. I don't just say it, I do it when I say that, you know, I'm sending you so much love, and I do that while I'm saying that because I feel that's what people need. They need to be wrapped in love, you know, and they need to have that space to find their own journey, how it makes sense to them or not. I have an interview series that's called Up Spiral Grief. And my very first interview was with a lady who's also a TEDx speaker, Jennifer Matthews. Amazing, amazing story. And her podcast, I hope I get the title right, was Death is Inevitable, Grief is Optional, something around those lines, Jennifer Matthews. And I loved that she was straight after her partner's passing in such a state of peace and love, because that was their spiritual journey together leading up to her partner's death. And I was so blown away that, I mean, I got there pretty fast, but she was there instantly. And I was like, wow, and I felt that was the most beautiful gift there is. And I can so understand that, unfortunately, how society sees grief, that there was a lot of judgment. How can you be so happy after your partner's passing? Well, because that's what he wanted for me. I'm doing
Yeah.
exactly what he wished for me, and that's what I would have wanted for him too. And happiness is not always the deepest, purest happiness there is. It is often a fake it till you make it kind of story, till the outside world sees you so happy, and on the inside you're still healing and grieving and going through the motions. And all of that is okay. It's okay to grieve, it's okay to be happy. It's just, there's another saying that a lot of people use: it's okay not to be okay. And then a very dear friend of mine, who's also a moderator in my group, Christopher Krupa, he said to me, it's okay to be okay. And I was like, I love this so much. I love this so much. I have no words, because everybody goes, it's okay not to be okay. And every time I hear that now, I go like, yeah, and it's okay to be okay. Both is okay. It's just, I love it. Absolutely love it.
Oh, I love that you say that, because it makes me think that there's a lot of guilt that comes with it. Like,
Yes.
I have to keep grieving this. And especially I would
Mhm.
think around their family or your family. Like, if they don't see you
Yeah.
sad, you must not
Mm.
care anymore. You must have forgotten them. And that's what, when you said it's okay to be okay, everyone
Mm.
wants you to be okay. But then there's this, is that part of the stigma that people have with grief, is like,
Yeah.
when I'm around his family, I have to act like I'm still sad,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it does feel like that. And it's also honoring their emotions and where they are at in their journey. And not everybody has got the same belief. I feel very blessed for the journey that I've been guided on, the whole shift in perspective to look at grief so differently, and to find that healing journey that I've been put on, that has been laid open in front of me so clearly that I could not overlook it, was such a gift. I so often talk about the hidden gifts in adversity. There are always gifts in every adversity, always, no matter how tragic, no matter how deep. And it just takes us to open our hearts and minds to finding them. And my take on that is always like, I really want you to find them and allow them in, because our loved ones paid a really high price for that. So I
Yeah.
really want you to honor those gifts that came with that. Yeah.
I so agree with you. You and I are completely aligned on the
Mm,
contracts. I think there's living contracts that end, and I think
mm,
there's physical contracts that end.
yeah.
And oh, I just had a thought in my mind of,
Mhm.
oh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, you have so much good
It'll
information that
come back.
I'm it will kind it will come back. Oh, that was the other thing. I know why I lost my train of thought. By the way, I am a spirit guide medium. And
Mhm.
as you were speaking, that's exactly why I went blank, is I kept hearing that's my girl, that's my girl. So
Oh,
I just want to tell you that I
do you
that
know, that just gave me goosebumps, because that's exactly how Rob would always say it. That's my girl.
there you
That's
go.
exactly the words he would use. I'm like, oh, I love
Uh,
it.
I have full body chills right now. And that's why I couldn't remember what I was about
Mm.
to say, because I kept getting interrupted as you were speaking with, that's my girl. That's my girl. So he's here with us. He is
Mm.
definitely here with
That
us.
doesn't surprise me.
No, he's with you every time you do this. He's with you because
Mm.
you honor him. You honor what you guys chose to say together. And
Mm.
I think this is really cool. we need to have those conversations. Listeners, I
Yeah.
know it's a difficult conversation, but I've had these conversations with my husband as well. And I've
Mm.
said, when I go, please be happy. That's what you can
Mhm.
do to honor me. That's even if it's
Mhm.
moving on with
Yeah.
someone else. Um,
Mm.
there's that guilt of, I'll never love anyone else like I love you. You know, you won't love anyone
Yeah.
like you love me because there was only one me. But
It will
also,
be different. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like when you lose a pet, you have another puppy. It's not the same puppy, and you never forget your old dog, but you have
Mm.
love for that puppy. So
Yeah.
tell me how the kids are doing, because guys, I
Mm.
saw pictures of her beautiful boys. They're the most handsome little men, I
Thank you.
swear. Um
Hashtag made with love.
exactly. And I'm just gonna say they look 50-50. One looks just like you and one looks just like
Yeah,
Rob.
absolutely.
Um
We get that all the time.
just gorgeous, gorgeous boys. So how are they doing, and how do you think they will do in the future with
Mm.
what you're teaching them about grief?
So, first of all, they're doing great, absolutely great. And I have been going through my waves of worrying about how they would be because, you would be able to relate to this when you are a coach yourself or when you are in any sort of helping profession. You tend to overanalyze everything, and it's almost like you're putting, a clone of your son on the couch in your mind, obviously not the real person, and go like, okay, am I doing the right thing? And am I providing the right space for you to heal? And just because I turned to happiness and that became my North Star and I made it our North Star doesn't mean that that was your right path. And have I provided enough space for you to grieve and stay in that and feel the emotion? Or did I drag you away from it? And, it's just that over analyzing. You really drive yourself crazy with that. So I felt that very distinctly this year, although it's been 4.5 years now since Rob passed. But this year, oh, sorry, I should say last year because we're already in 2023 now. At the end of July in 2022, Rob's dad passed away. So that was my third significant father figure I lost in my life. First, my dad when I was 20, then Rob when we were 45. And then, his dad passed a few years later. And we were all there with him when he passed, which was incredibly sacred. The entire family around him. He was surrounded by so much love. And Rob was there. He told us it was so, and he was not really believing in it. His mom always did. His dad was like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. But in his final stages, he saw Rob, he felt him, he talked to him, he talked to us about him and what he said to him. And it was so beautiful and so sacred to experience that. And my little one fell apart there. And I said to him a few times, because they are raised bilingual. So I said to them in German to not embarrass them or put them on the spot in front of their cousins. I said, if you want to go outside, I'll come with you. You don't have to stay here. You don't need to be here for this. You do whatever feels right for you. And he wanted to stay. My older one was like a rock. He's, towering over me by like more than 10 centimeters now. It's just stood there really strong. Like my protector was incredible. He's 14, and they, like the three of us just stood there, and it was such a sacred experience for us to be able to witness his final breath and to hold him in love while he passed away. That was so beautiful and sacred in a way. And after that, anxiety hit me. After that, I got this wave of, did I do the right thing? Did I provide the right space for them? Did I give them enough space for their emotions? Maybe they've been bottling it up and now it's coming out. And like all these thoughts came up for me. And I did the best thing that I knew I could. I took myself back to therapy because I went to therapy for about 4 months after Rob passed. It was the most amazing thing I could have done. I saw a positive psychologist and I went back to seeing somebody. So it needs to be somebody with family experience because I might want to take the boys with me at some stage. I don't know yet. But I knew I needed to deal with my anxiety. And it was the most beautiful work. I've only seen her for about 2 months now. And I have completely let go of that. And she really supported me in this, finding my own inner peace with, you have done the most incredible and amazing job that you could have done with everything that you've been given. And I really trust that now. I think that I did allow a bit of judgment from the outside in and infuse me. And that was really quite poisonous for me. I really had to allow that to leave again and go like, you know what? No, I look at them and they're so well rounded. They're so chilled, and they're teenagers. They're just beautiful, and I have got such a strong and deep connection with them. So different with both of them, but so strong with both of them. And every time they come back from a sleepover or something, everyone says to me, "You've got the most polite and beautiful young man there. You've done a great job, Marie." And I'm floored every single time because I'm like, I really need to hear this. Because when you are a sole parent, you don't have the other parent telling you, "You're doing a great job, babe." You do need to hear that every now and then, or quite often actually. So when it comes, I'm like soaking it up, and you try to allow it in, but it's still, when my anxiety hit me, I I heard what they said. "You're doing a great job with the boys," but inside my voice was going like, "Do I? Am I doing the best I can? Am I?" So yeah, in a
and it's
nutshell,
hard. Yeah, it
long-winded
is.
answer. They
Oh
are doing
no,
great. I just had to learn to see it.
yes, that's exactly it.
Mm.
And having more mercy on yourself, because you give mercy to everybody else and then
Yeah.
you're just
Hmm.
judging yourself left and right. And
Hmm.
whether you're a single parent through death or divorce,
Yeah.
I can tell you my own experience was I kept saying in my head, I get the credit for their successes, but I get the blame for all their failures. And that was
Yeah.
that fear was like, it's all
Yeah.
on me. And it
Yeah.
took me a long time. It took me for them to get into their adulthood for me to finally just go, they are who they are. Their
Mm.
mistakes are their mistakes. Their successes are
Yeah.
their successes. They are their own people. I just was there to
Mm.
guide them. Did I do the best I could? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
mercy and grace that
Thank you.
you have to have. I tell
So
all
true.
since I'm a
Yeah.
relationship coach and I do family couple coaching, um,
Mm.
this is what I tell every parent, and every single parent has doubts about their abilities and how
Mm.
good they are. And I'd say this: there are no perfect parents, and there's two things your
Mm.
children want: your love and your time. If you're doing that, you're
Mm.
doing it right.
Yeah.
That's all they need.
Mm.
Everything else is just schematics and logistics and riffraff and extra. Right? Just give them
Yeah.
love and
I love it.
time, and you can tell
Mm.
your boys how much they love you, how everyone, is validating just they're
Yeah.
so good. They're good kids. They're not rebelling. They're not out there breaking the law or doing drugs and alcohol to deal with their emotions. You
Yeah.
allowed them to feel and heal and to have another healthy experience with death with your
Mm.
father-in-law. So
Yeah.
I think you are the absolute expert on grief, but I think you are absolutely the uber expert on healing grief. So
Thank you.
tell us as we wrap up, we've got about 15 more minutes to go. Tell us how you got from that point. What are the things that you did? Because you talk about
Mm.
how really focusing on happiness. And what I hear is you were just mindful every day of focusing on the moments. And I think
Mm.
that's just as my son would say to me, just take a bite, don't eat the whole hippo,
Yeah.
is
Oh,
is that essentially what you have to do, is just keep
yeah.
it small steps?
And I deliberately always say one breath at a time, because breath is the one thing that is so incredibly important in the healing journey. That I so often talk about the power of one deep breath, just being that. Oh, it just so brings you back into the moment, into your body, into feeling, and it really helps, that one breath. And sometimes it is that one breath at a time. Take another one. If you're still hurting, take another one. Spend time in nature. It's so important. Go out into nature. Hug a tree. Like, seriously, hug a tree. Put your feet barefoot in the ground, in the snow if you must. It doesn't matter. Sit at the ocean if you're close to the ocean. Just spend time in nature. It's so important. So my journey, really in sort of bullet points, and how I got through this was, I already told you at the beginning how we flew to Perth to identify the body, come back, have the funeral. A week after the funeral, I had a nervous breakdown, because the one thing that I went into functioning mode. I just went into, as I said, day by day, what needs to be done. It was like a tick list. And I think my brain needed that to hold on to something, because if I wouldn't have, then the pain would have overwhelmed me completely. It would have been way too strong. So I needed something to hold on to, which was my to-do list. So we had the funeral on a Wednesday, and on the Sunday, I had to walk my little one down the aisle for his first Holy Communion in the same week. And all eyes were on us, the whole town knew. And I had tears rolling down my cheeks, and I was trying to keep it together for Jed. And when we finally, because we were in the second last row, and I think they were trying to do us a favor to not be in the eyes of everyone, to put us at the back, but that gave me this long aisle to walk. I thought I'm going to collapse by the time I got there. It was so hard for me. And then we walked around and to the back, and I started bawling. Like, I literally just made it to the back. I got Rob's best mate, who was his guardian, to take him and sit with him, and I walked outside, and I just burst into tears. I just completely lost it. And then a week later, I had this nervous breakdown in my kitchen. It all started over me saying, I just need peace and quiet. I bursted out because the boys were fighting over brushing their teeth and who could rinse their teeth first. And I don't know, the little things. And I said that, and all of a sudden I realized what that did to my body and my mind when I said that out loud. And then I started saying it louder and louder and louder, and all of a sudden I was screaming it on top of my lungs. I just need peace and quiet. And I can't even remember the moment when I collapsed, but I found myself on the kitchen floor, whacking the kitchen cupboards and screaming that sentence over and over again. And it was such a relief. It was like a valve had opened, and all my pain came out in just that one sentence. I was craving peace and quiet so deeply, and then everything was quiet. Then I had to have a conversation with my boys about that, because of course they witnessed it, and the guilt that came over me was horrible. But it was the most beautiful and open conversation about emotions, about pain, about this out of body experience that happens, that primal screaming when you're, when you're in such deep pain. It was beautiful to have that conversation. I felt so much guilt and shame when it happened that I couldn't control it for them. But then I realized that too was important to have, so we could have that conversation. It was so bizarre. And that's what made me choose to work with a positive psychologist, that meltdown, because I thought, I don't ever want my boys to witness anything like that again. And quite frankly, I didn't want to either. It was terrifying. So I saw Emily, the most beautiful positive psychologist, for about 4 months. And in that office of hers, she asked me this question that was the seed that planted everything for that beautiful movement that I'm running now. She said to me, it's so overwhelming. And I told her about this meltdown and how the expectations that everybody has on me and how I'm supposed to be grieving. And she looked at me ever so calmly and said, so what does grief mean to you, Marie? And I was like, I cannot believe that the first word that came up was empowerment. I did not expect that word in the field of grief. Yet I felt so empowered. I felt so guided by Rob. I felt so looked after. And I shared it with her, and we had this beautiful conversation. I said to her, I think I need to write a book about this. And so I did. So after that, I wrote a book. It was about 4 months into Rob's passing, and 5 months into his passing, I published it. It took me about 4 weeks to write and publish it. It was such a download. It was such a flow. And then about 2-3 weeks later, I took the boys and we traveled around the world for 2 months. And it was the most beautiful thing we could have done, just to get away from all these first milestones and all the expectations from people, and to just literally travel and be away and create all these new happy moments. And then I sat in Vienna, where I was originally from, in my old apartment that my mum lives in now. And I was, just reminiscing about everything that happened in this half a year, and like what a journey we've been on. And, traveling to the Maldives and the Canary Islands, and now sitting in this magical winter wonderland. And, it was just quite magical, actually, and so surreal to walk through what had happened. And that's when I had this epiphany that the book was so much more than just our story. I had to do something bigger with that, because the book, it not only became an Amazon #1 bestseller, but it also ranked in the top 100 of Australia. That was so unexpected for me. And that's when I realized I've got something the world needs, that is hope and healing and happiness, and let's spread that. So when I came back from traveling around the world, I opened the doors to the movement. And that's when everything just, it was like a domino effect. I started creating healing journeys and healing programs and retreats. And this is what I focus on now, my healing retreats. I also wrote a second book called Happy Healing, where I wrote, how the story continued and how we traveled and what I created out of this. And then I did my TEDx talk that you mentioned, the redefining our image of a widow, because I just really felt like something needs to be said about that. And yeah, last year was crazy. We had, I think the third and fourth article in Mamma Mia, which is a beautiful magazine that everybody knows here in Australia. And then Channel 7 reached out to me and wanted to interview me. And then Channel 9 reached out to me and wanted to interview me. And that was all happening within a week. And I was like, wow, this year has been so crazy. And I know so many people said 2022 was just, well, not the best year. For me, it was the most incredible and intense year of growth and learning and opening up. It was the first year that I realized we've been spending 4 years talking and teaching about creating support networks and opening your heart to that and all of that, that it took me 4 years to actually start allowing it into my own heart. I've been building it, I've been creating it, and they've been surrounding me and holding me, but to really, truly 100% allow them in, not even sure if I'm at 100% yet, but I'm at a high percentage now. That took me till last year. It was really a turning point for me, where I realized, wow, this is really a very different way of being open now, and allowing is such a beautiful, soft and powerful word in the world of grief. So yeah, that was my nutshell of all of that.
I really love that, because I think we have to live it, we have to learn it, and then we love it. And I know everyone that comes on, every guest that comes on with some story of their experience, my own story of domestic violence and abuse, like when we look back with gratitude, it's not that we're happy that the bad thing happened, or the pain that came from that, but we can have that gratitude that I made it through that. I learned from it. And every single person on I Never Knew podcast says, I need to do something with it. I need to carry that forward. I need to share that. And that makes my existence worthwhile. And it gives me purpose, and it helps my loved one live on. And you're just,
exactly.
you're so doing that. So I
Thank
just
you.
am enamored by you. I am amazed by you. And I want to come to Australia and meet you. And it just,
Come.
you are so fabulous. That's one of the places that I
Thank
dream of
you.
going. So guys, here's all the places where you can find her. Of course, her books are on Amazon, right? Okay, they're Amazon bestsellers, and it's Loving Life After Loss and also Happy Healing. And then please check out her TED Talks. I just loved her TED Talks. And then I want you to reach out to her on her website at mariealessi.com. I'll have all of this in our podcast links for you, her Facebook page. And also, if you're looking for her interesting healing retreats, or you just want to reach out to her and just say, hey, I'm going through something, what is my first step? It's her passion, it's her ikigai, what she does, what her purpose is. And that's at mariealessi.com/healing-retreat. And again, I'll have all of this on the podcast links. And I want to know, as we wrap up, Miss Marie is fascinating, and I could talk to you forever. Tell me what it is you never knew that you know now?
Oh my goodness. What is it that I never knew? I think it's really the strength that I had within, and also that there is a different perspective to grief. It's that whole, I heard so many people say this, the amount of love needs to be portrayed in the amount of pain that you're in. I see the complete opposite, the amount of joy that I ooze into this world and the amount of healing that I enable and share with people. That to me is the equivalent of who Rob and I were together and what he taught me. Rob was the one who taught me the concept about two choices, and I'm so living that now. And I'm, yeah, just filled with gratitude to the rafters. I cannot say it in any other words.
Yeah, in the words of Rob, that's my girl. Keep
Thanks, babe.
doing, keep doing what you're doing, because I feel him, and I feel that he sends you signs pretty often to let you know that he's around, and I think that's
Hmm.
a big thing too. No matter what anyone's beliefs are, whether it's religious or otherwise, I believe there is a source, a higher power, and then we are all infinite beings, and we let our loved ones know that we are around. And all you have to do is be aware of the
Hmm.
signs. You have to look for the signs, and wherever you're focused, you'll see them. They'll let you
Yeah.
know that they are there. So thank you, my lovely Marie, for being a guest today. I'm just honored to be talking to you, and being able to have all of this information given to the listeners. And I know there's so many people that are going to be touched by you, and it's really going to be helpful to them. So thank you for gracing me with an hour of your life that you'll never get
Thank you
back.
so much.
Namaste, my
Thank you.
love.
Namaste. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, listeners. So if you are wanting to get help with any grief healing, go ahead and reach out to mariealessi.com. That's MarieAlessi.com. And if you're looking for some relationship, dating, coaching, self confidence coaching, my address is lifecoachmaureen.com. And my books, My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and My Dog is My Relationship Coach. And book number 3 is in the process of being written. So go get those books, and it'll help you with your love life and attracting the person that deserves you. So have an awesome day, listeners. Until we meet again on next episode, be well, be happy, and we'll see you later.